After 7 years on 2B2T, I finally griefed for the first time. But before we get to that, I'd like to go back to the beginning in order to add some context. So it all began when I came across Rusher's 2B2T series in October of 2016, right as the war ended. When I initially attempted to join, the queue was just too long at the time, but I did end up finally waiting it out and logged onto the server for the first time on December 4th, 2016. I did not come to destroy, I came to build and to explore. It's also important to note that I am in no way opposed to griefing, and I think the sandcastle element is a large part in what makes 2B2T beautiful. With all that in mind, I've always known that someday the right situation would present itself naturally, and it finally has. Now let's jump all the way to October 25th, 2023, when I stumbled across a new friend on the outskirts of Spawn named MsBallen. Ballen had a small farm and was gathering resources just so he could help other new players. I found this to be wholesome and I decided to hang out and build my own little cabin. Ballen had told me about a particular player named TheSandwichJames who kept coming and griefing the place every few days. Keep in mind that anytime I use the word griefed when referring to James, I use that term very lightly. James was also a new player with no resources himself, so he'd simply destroy some crops, signs, and break a few blocks. On October 28th, 3 days after I arrived, James would return to grief it for the last time, as Ballen had had enough and decided to move on to a new location after this. As you can see here, once again he simply broke a couple blocks and called it a grief. If we take a look here at James's chat logs, on the 28th he was asking about who I was. He then proceeded to go to my YouTube channel and left this comment. I just thought it was funny and really gave no thought to James after that. Going back to his chat logs once again, you'll see on the 30th he was asking if Ballen was online. My best assumption is that he had returned to grief once again, but instead discovered Ballen's signs about leaving the base for good. Now let's fast forward about 3 months to January 23rd, 2024. While out exploring, I just so happened to stumble across this tiny little base built by no other than TheSandwichJames himself. I immediately knew that this was that natural occurring moment I had spoke of at the beginning of this video. I'd now like to quickly jump back to that comment James left on my YouTube channel, calling Ballen's base ugly. While it wasn't anything fancy, at least it had some soul in it. I mean, look at Ballen's cozy and intricate little home. Even the tiny cabin that I built in like 15 minutes had more heart than James' entire base. All 3 of the buildings here are just the most basic cobblestone rectangles with floors made of dirt and sand. Don't get me wrong, it's okay to build like this to gather up some resources for your journey, but it takes some real audacity to call someone's base ugly and then go on to construct the most vanilla base that could possibly be built. James, I hope you see this video, because you've quite literally been caught in 4K. For over 7 years now, I've been able to say that I've never griefed a base on 2B2T, but today, that all ends here.